Hello, I'm Isaac. I am with the Economics Tutoring Center at ASU, and today I'll be covering monopolistic competition. So Joey a couple weeks ago covered perfect competition. An example of a perfect competition good would be something like very similar or exactly identical, so it doesn't matter. So like an example I would use maybe corn. Everyone's selling the same corn. So in that market, whatever the market determines the price to be, that will be the price. So you are essentially a price taker in that market as an individual firm. While in monopolistic competition, let's say I'm selling burgers. And so when I'm selling burgers, I have my own special recipe. Maybe a guy across the street, we call him Jeff, he's also selling burgers. So people, when they're looking for a burger, they can go to Isaac's Burger Stand, they can go to Jeff's Burger Stand, but the burgers are not exactly the same. They're not made out of corn. They're not the same exact thing. So that's kind of the difference between monopolistic competition and perfect competition is really we each have a monopoly on our own burgers. No, Jeff's not going to be making my burgers, he's making his burgers. But we're going to be competing with each other, so that's going to add some dynamic to how we work, and you'll see that in a second. So when you look at this graph here, first thing you notice the big difference between perfect competition and monopolistic competition. When I want to have more people consume, I have to decrease the price I'm charging everybody. So if I'm charging $10 a burger for $10 and 4 people come and purchase one, and then a fifth guy comes in and he says, hey, I'll pay $8 for that burger. I'll be like, I'll charge you $8 for that. Then everyone, the last 4 people that came in, they'll be like, hey, how come you're giving him a lower price? So if I want to charge a lower price, I'm going to have to give everyone a lower price. So not only when I charge a lower price am I going to lose some revenue on that next additional unit I sell, but on all the previous units I would have sold. So instead of charging 10 for everybody before him, I'd also charge 8 for everybody else. So that's kind of the difference between why marginal revenue and demand kind of separate in a monopolistic competition instance. So looking at this curve, we're still going to use the fact that we want to start off by looking where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. And why is that? Well, if I'm a firm, marginal cost is saying, hey, this is how much the next additional burger I make cost me. And then marginal revenue is saying, this is how much money the next additional burger is costing me. So once my marginal cost is greater than marginal revenue, I do not want to make that burger because I'm essentially making a burger that costs me more than I can sell it for. So that sounds like a bad business practice. So we're going to go up and we're going to sell up to the point at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So the next unit, my marginal cost is going to be above my marginal revenue, and I'm not going to sell anymore. So before in perfect competition, this is the point at which we kind of operated as a firm. But remember why marginal revenue is different than demand. Our marginal revenue is less than the price, but in reality, we are still charging the price. So we have to. So from here, you're going to say, this is my quantity. This is going to tell you my quantity. I'll call it Q star. That's my quantity. This tells me the quantity, and I'm going to go up to the demand curve, and this is the price now at that quantity I'm charging. So this is the price. I'm going to call it P star. So at this quantity, I have an average total cost and an average variable cost as well. And that's what really matters when I'm selling this good. So we'll look at how much money I'm making, my revenue. We'll look at how much it's going to cost me total, how much is variable costs are going to cost me. So simply, this is the price I'm charging the good for, times the quantity is how much revenue I'm generating. So I'm just going to do, we'll assign some variables here just so we can have some numbers. We'll call Q star, we're selling 10 burgers, and we're selling 10 burgers at a price of $5. So if I'm selling 10 burgers at a price of $5, I'm going to say, so $5 times 10 equals $50. And that's my revenue. Now at this price we have an average total cost. So if you remember the definition of kind of a mean or an average, total divided by quantity equals the average. So if I bring quantity across, I get total equals the average times the quantity I'm selling. So with that in mind, I can take the average total cost and I can multiply it by the quantity I'm selling, and I can get the total cost. So we'll say our average total cost is $4 for simplicity. $4 times 10 is It's going to get, and remember, this is kind of what we're losing, so I'm going to call it a negative $4 because this is how much it cost us to make all the burgers. Negative $40. But cost. So if I want to find my profit, because I have the revenue, I have the cost, I can just take 50 and subtract the 40, which would give me $10. So there's also average variable cost, and you can call this maybe $3 in this instance. And that becomes relevant in a second when we're not operating at a profit. So right now you can see, right, we get $50 in revenue minus $40 cost gives us $10 positive profit. That's good. It's profit. So in the long term, what's end up happening is people are going to see me and Joe making profit on our burger stands, and other people, Jim, Bill, every other people who want to make burgers are going to be like, hey, they're making positive economic profits. We want to make positive economic profits like they are. We're going to enter the market. And when consumers have a lot more options for burgers, the consumer, not Isaac anymore, as the consumer who's looking for burgers, I can be more picky. So the way that's expressed is in the demand becoming more elastic. So as the demand becomes more elastic, eventually the point when at our given quantity we're going to supply, the demand will be so elastic that we're going to get zero economic profits. So that's kind of what happened in the long term. In monopolistic competition, we're going to have zero economic profits because of the elasticity changing based off entry or exit into the market for the burgers in general. So to cover the specific point of what's going to happen in the long run versus the short term, we're making pots. So this is the same graph I was looking at before. Marginal cost, marginal revenue, equal right here. We get our quantity. From here, we go up to the price. We get our price. We're making positive economic profit because we're above the average total cost. Essentially, our price is greater than our costs. For every good we sell, average, I mean, you multiply this by quantity, so you do price times quantity minus cost times quantity, and we're going to get a positive number in this instance because price is greater than cost. I mean, you can illustrate that by bringing out the quantity and just saying price minus cost. That's going to be a positive number. So it's going to be positive, and this will be positive as well. So we know we have positive economic profit. Let's use some real numbers to make this example more real. So I'm just going to say the price we're charging is $5, and the cost is $4, and the quantity we're supplying, is Q, is 10. I'm using real numbers. My price is $5 times 10, so P times Q is 50. So 5 times 10 minus 4 times 10. So I'm just doing cost times quantity. 4 times 10. That's going to give us 50 minus 40 would be $10 positive. Now, if I could just bring the quantity out since it's multiplied both by 10, and I could do $5 minus $4. I'm getting essentially $1 profit on average from every good I sell. Right? 5 minus 4 is 1. And 1 times 10 is also 10, of course. So that's just a shorthand looking at it and just seeing really, you can just say, hey, I know what my cost I'm charging is. I know what the average total cost is. I can say I'm going to make profit or not profit just by looking at that. For like, you don't even have to multiply by the quantity, essentially. I mean, if you want to get the totals, you are going to have to multiply by the quantity, but just looking at it, just seeing if you are. You can just look at the numbers. So now I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about the long run when we have zero economic profit. So in the long run, we're assuming there's more competition. That's going to lower the price because we're going to have more demand, or we're going to have more competition, which is going to make our demand more elastic versus less elastic. So now let's say, since this is what our prices were before, we were charging $5 before, let's say we're charging $3 now because a million competitors came in, and now we have so much competition. Now we're charging $3, but we're going to actually assume that the quantity we're supplying is probably less too, since it's so competitive. We're only supplying, let's say, 8 goods. So in this instance, when I look right here, marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Go up to the price. This is the price we're charging, is $3, but is also the cost we're incurring on average for every good we sell. So if you look back to this equation, you can just multiply the quantity times the price minus the cost. Well, Our quantity is 8. The price we're charging is $3. The cost we're incurring on average for each good is $3. So 3 minus 3 is just 0, so 0 times 8, of course, is also 0. So this is going to equal 0. So one more thing to mention about economic profits is, although we have 0 economic profits in this instance, it's not the same as accounting profits. So economic profits is saying, hey, we're making as much to not only pay off all of our accounting costs, and so we're not losing money, but we're also making enough that our opportunity costs, we're equal to our opportunity costs. We're making enough where we're indifferent between like staying here or moving to a different job. We'll stay. Why change what we're already doing if we are meeting our next best option? That's a general overview of this. Please consult your professor or come to Economics Tutoring Center if you have any questions. Your professor is probably the primary source for how they handle this material. If you feel to come by. Have a good one.